Many people are afraid to share God, the God they know and love, with others, and would never think of ever asking another person to go to heaven with them. I guess we feel that that's their business, not ours to talk about. But we might be surprised if we would take the chance and say it out loud and hear the response to this invitation. To explain what I mean, I want to tell you a story about a little Indian boy I met along the highway. I was invited to a 25th wedding anniversary in the Kansas City area. And while I was preparing to go, there was a man in the parish that was very old and very sick. And his wife called me and said, "Father, I don't want you to go. I heard you were leaving for Kansas City. Joe is going to die and you won't be here to bury him." And I said, "Oh, Sophie, I'll come back right away. I promise I won't let anybody else bury Joe. No, you get down there and you're having fun and you won't want to come back." And I said, "I promise I'll come back." Finally, I got her daughter on the phone and convinced her daughter that I would be back, and she convinced her mother. And so I left on Friday to be there for the anniversary on Saturday evening. Joe died Friday night, of course. So the next morning, I got a phone call telling me that Joe had died. They'd like to have the funeral on Monday. I said, "That's just fine. The celebration is tonight. Sunday, I'll get up early, head for home. We can have the wake Sunday evening and the funeral on Monday." So we went through the things that they wanted and needed to know to prepare, and it was all taken care of. So off to the celebration I went. The next morning I got up, fueled up with my car with gas, and headed for home. But it was a very hot June day, and I was very tired. And it wasn't too many miles down the road, and I started falling asleep. I couldn't stay awake. My problem was I wouldn't know that I was falling asleep. I would realize it when I'd wake up, and that's very dangerous. I knew if I pulled over and went to sleep someplace, I could sleep so long that I would miss the wake that night, and Sophie would be right. "You won't be here." But I wanted to be there for her and for her husband, Joe. And so as I was riding along, I couldn't think. I would turn up the radio, I'd turn up the air conditioner, I'd get out and run around the car, all of these things, and go fall right back to sleep. So in the event that I couldn't protect myself, I finally did something I've never done before. I don't know if I would encourage you ever to do this or not, but I prayed for pain. Now that's pretty awful because you don't know where it's going to happen. I was riding along, after I prayed for pain enough to keep me awake, wondering which end is it going to attack. And while I was waiting to find this out, I went by a little boy, an Indian boy, just a young 18, 19-year-old boy, hitchhiking on the interstate. I looked at him, and he looks just like a kid, and I thought maybe he'd keep me awake. So I stopped. And he ran as hard as he could, opened the door, and just a little bag, threw it in the floor between his feet, and jumped in, and he was talking when he got in. And he was so excited to get a ride. He'd been down on the Gulf Coast. He'd been shrimping down there. Have you ever been shrimping on the Gulf Coast? And he went on and told me all about it, all of the things that are fun about it. And we visited along, for a while, and finally he said, "Do you have an aspirin?" And I said, "No, I have some Tylenol in the trunk." "Is something wrong?" He said, "Yes, I have this terrible toothache." He said, "About 10 minutes before you picked me up, this pain hit me terrible hard." About 10 minutes. Yeah. That's just the length of time before I picked him up that I prayed for pain. And I kind of looked up. I said, "That's okay, God. I get things mixed up too. Maybe it's better he has the pain than me because I have to drive." The next place we could pull off the highway, I stopped and got water for him to get a drink and gave him a couple of Tylenol. And on the road we went. He was a wonderful young man. He was beautiful in his heart, in his joy, in his living. It just flowed out of him. I remember at one point I asked him if he had a good mother and father, and oh yes, and he talked about his mother. She raised 17 children, and he talked about her and all of the wonderful things that she did. And when he got done, he just get quiet. And I said, well, what about your dad? And he said, well, my dad is in prison. Oh, really? Where? In Washington State. And so it was kind of quiet for a while, and finally I said, what did he do? He killed 3 people. And it was very quiet. Finally I said, you're more like your mom than you are your dad, aren't you? And he laughed. He caught it immediately. Oh, I wouldn't hurt you. I wouldn't hurt anybody. We stopped in Council Bluffs for dinner. I said, order whatever you want, as much as you want. Order something to take with you. You saved my life. You haven't been quiet since you got in the car. And we had this food. I got some more Tylenol out and gave it to him. I went as far north as I could before I had to turn and go west. When I pulled off the interstate to let him out, he grabbed for the handle of the car, and I said, wait a minute before you get out. I have a favor I want to ask you. And this is something, the part of the story I wanted to tell you folks. You've saved my life. You've talked, and I've laughed and laughed. And I said, I will never see you again. I'll never remember your last name. But I've been looking out the window and not at you, so if I met you on the street, I wouldn't recognize you. But you did save my life, and I appreciate it. And you're so funny, and you're fun. And so the favor I have to ask you is, for the rest of your life, as often as you can, you make choices, good or bad, right or wrong. Would you choose the good and do what's right? And I'll do the same. And then when we're dead, we can be together in heaven. And I think it would be really fun to spend eternity listening to you, just having you there. Would you do that for me? And his eyes, dark, beady eyes, were huge. And they filled up with water, and they just started running over. And his bottom lip started quivering. And he looked at me with all intensity and said, I promise, no one has ever asked me to go to heaven with them. I promise I'll try. He grabbed his little bag, got out of the car. I told him goodbye. And as far as I could see in my rearview mirror as I drove away, he was down on his tiptoes, waving and waving and waving. A beautiful, beautiful replica of Jesus Christ in that face, in that heart, in that fun and funny person. Someday when we're all dead, I'll bring him around and introduce you to him. And I promise you'll love him. His eyes might have been filled with tears. His lip might have been quivering. But there was a light in his face. And that light is called love and hope and an everlasting promise.